Okay, so if you watch the first video, I am going to say something that, someone called me. They think I'm a counselor. So that you understand, I'm not a counselor. I didn't get licensed as a counselor. But as a teacher, you do have to do some counseling. And so there were times where I did have to consult. So this particular parent, who is a classmate of mine, asked me a question about one of their teenage children because I've been teaching teenagers in some way, shape, or form since the 1990s. That was the 20th century for those millennials out there. So I know you know that. I'm just saying. So they asked me a question. They said, hey, I have a child who's a teenager, and they got an attitude with the parent when the parent requested that they do something with the child's phone. They wanted the child to do something with the phone, and the child got fly at the mouth. And a lot of people in certain cultures want to go to corporal punishment like a whooping or a spanking. In this particular case, it's more of the whooping franchise. So this particular parent wants to address issues in a non-violent, a non-corporal punishment style. And I told this particular parent that I'm not a parent, okay? So I don't have any children. Um, and but I do work with teenagers, okay? So I told them what I would do as a teacher, and I gave them a story. So here's the story. This is your Black History fact for the day from me. And I know it's true because it happened with me. So I'm in a classroom at a particular school in which part of my job description was to do the tech, the IT. So I was upgrading a computer in the classroom or troubleshooting a computer, and the teacher continued to teach as if I wasn't really there. And one of the students finished their work early. This is a preteen, I think maybe 12, maybe 13. I think it was the 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade. And this child started to get a little fly at the mouth. Well, they were finished with their work. They're pretty much a good student in terms of their grades. And so this child, started feeling himself and saying that, he knew everything, and, he didn't know everything, but he knew how to take care of himself. He didn't really see the value of his parents, and the way he was just talking, because as an educator, one of the things you always ask the child is, do you do this at home? Like when they put their feet up on the desk, and they do things that you don't expect them to do at home. You say, is this what you do at home? And some of them get smart with you, and it may be true, and they'll say, yeah, I do this at home. And I say, well, you're not at home. So this particular child was like, well, yeah, I do this at home, and I can do whatever because, all my parents do is go to work and then come home. I can do that. I mean, I go to school and I go home. And I'm like, oh, really? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well. And they started to get fly with me. Now, I asked the teacher, would it be okay if I provide some assistance, while the teacher can continue to teach class? So what I went and did is I went online to the IRS website. I printed out a 1040 EZ now, the 1040 EZ. Now that means it's easy, okay? Printed out the 1040 with the instructions and gave it to the child. I said, since you have finished with your work and you agreed to go ahead and do some other work to prove to me that you know everything, since you know how to be an adult, go ahead and fill this out, and then we'll discuss it once you finish. That child sat there and stared at that thing for about 3 minutes. Just looked down at it, looked up, looked down at it. Then about 3 minutes later, looked at me and said, what I'm supposed to do with this? I said, what you mean? You grown, right? You know what the grown people do, right? This is one of the things grown people have to do. Grown people have to fill the 1040 out. And this is the easy one. I said, so, do your best. Put your name on the paper. I don't know where to put my name on the paper. Now, anybody that's done taxes, you might not know where to, You gotta kind of look a little bit. But after you do your taxes, you figure it out. And I told the child, I said, see, guess what? Your adult parents pay taxes. Because if they don't, and they actually make some income from a job, they're going to jail sooner or later, or they're going to have to pay those taxes pretty much by force. So I let them know. I said, hey, you thought you was grown, but you proving to yourself that you're not. So you might want to just chill a little bit. Do you want to remain a young teenage child, or do you want to go ahead and be an adult? And they say, I'm gonna be a child. I said, very good. And so that's my Black History moment right there, because that child didn't have too many problems in the school after that. Once they realized that they weren't as grown as they thought they were. You just gotta give them some humility without humiliating. You know, not every child takes humiliation very good, especially these days with the bullying, you know, that goes on and all this social media the value they place on social media. So, you know, that's your Black History moment for the day, but it went over. But I might keep the video up. We'll see. Give me some feedback. What you think?